Warner Brothers Discovery Inc. (WBD) is now a $10 to $12 stock. Yeah. Bond traders unloaded hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Warner Brothers Discovery bonds on Wednesday after all three major rating agencies, Fitch, Moody's, and S&P, downgraded the company's debt amid confusion over how it would be restructured following a split. The decline in the bond ratings comes just 3 years after the Warner Brothers film studio and television business was acquired for $43 billion by Discovery. The merger led to one of the largest corporate bond issuances ever, with a sale of $30 billion in debt. Now the company is splitting itself up, and investors do not know for sure how the restructuring is going to deal with the company's debt load. WBD streaming and studios will encompass Warner Brothers Pictures, HBO Max, and other related content. David Zaslav, WBD's current CEO, will lead this division. WBD Global Networks will include CNN, TNT, TBS, and other cable networks, along with sports properties like TNT Sports, Bleachers Report, and the Discovery Plus streaming services. WBD's current CFO, Gunnar Wiedenpils, will lead this division. It should be noted that while the cable audience is shrinking, cable still has greater revenue than streaming services, but the gap has greatly narrowed. Now both cable and streaming each earn about $17 billion. Since 2014, cable and satellite TV providers in the U.S. have lost over 20 million subscribers. Since 2015, the share of American adults subscribing to cable or satellite TV has dropped by 26%. In 2015, 76% of U.S. adults paid for these services, while in 2021, that number fell to 56%. Okay, and as Warner Brothers Discovery is planning to split itself up, it's also shutting down part of its operations. In a significant shakeup for the television industry, HBO, a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Discovery, has confirmed plans to shut down several of its linear channels, including HBO Family, Thriller Max, Movie Max, and Outer Max. The announcement, verified by Spectrum on August 15, 2025, marks a strategic pivot for the premium network as it continues to adapt the rapidly evolving media landscape. I think it's worse than that. I think it's worse than that. I think this is actually this company, which going back to 2008, when other companies had way too much debt, and then when the economy started coming down, they could not afford the debt load that they had, and they started scrambling. And most of them did not scramble in time, and they ended up going out of business, like Circuit City, for example. Toys R Us, I think Toys R Us actually survived, but they had to go into DevCon mode to survive. Toys R Us did. But I think it's a lot worse than simply Warner Brothers Discovery trying to deal with a changing industry. I think they're having to deal with a sinking economy. Part of the changes that's happening in our economy is because our economy is sinking. The U.S. is basically not technically bankrupt, but basically bankrupt. A large part of corporate America, you take Warner Brothers Discovery with the huge debt load that they took on. The company can't handle the debt load. But worse than that, they're like a canary in the coal mine in that what they're seeing, I guarantee you, is happening with lots and lots of corporations. On the county level and the city level in the state of Georgia, they're taking on debt loads that they can't afford. If you look at their revenue streams, unless they totally plan on bankrupting every freaking household in the county by stealing money from the households to pay for these water projects and other projects, these cities and counties cannot afford what they're doing. The federal government cannot afford to continue giving them the type of money that they've been being given. We have a slow meltdown in our economy happening right now. They're trying to manage it. The Federal Reserve and the government itself is trying to manage it. So they're hoping they can turn it around before it reaches that critical point. And they don't want you to fully understand, look, we're in a creeping disaster right now. Chuck, the sky's not falling. Quit saying the sky's falling. Well, I think the sky is falling. Just put it in different terms. Let's put it in different terms. We could actually be going back to the days when basically the average household in America was able to be entertained by 3 TV stations, informed and entertained by 3 TV stations, over-the-air TV stations. We could actually be going back to that. Now, they want to pivot and say, we're moving toward a streaming economy. It doesn't even make sense. There's limited bandwidth on the internet. And all of us are paying way too much for what we're getting. And you start streaming out movie after movie after movie, it requires more and more bandwidth, especially as they try to do various things with the streaming system. We don't have it. It makes a whole lot more sense to view movies and all through cable and satellite. That's what makes sense. Of course, they made it totally unaffordable. Unaffordable. The people aren't going to streaming because, oh yes, I want to use all my bandwidth, internet bandwidth, and watch TV through this unreliable crap that'll have that little circle going round and round and round and round part of the time when the system gets overloaded. That's what I want. No, that's not what you want. You want to have cable, but you can't afford cable. You want to have satellite, but you can't afford satellite. And you're way overpaying on your internet crap. I think it's a lot more serious. I think what's happening to Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD. I think it's a sign of the times, and I think it's a sign of the times of exactly how bad the freaking economy is. And I go back. The people are going to streaming because it was a cost savings. It was price savings. It was a way for them to save money. Well, they're going to keep going up on those prices. As more people go to that, then you're going to end up paying just as much. They think you're going to pay just as much or more through all these different streaming services than you were paying through cable. That's the reason they've been pushing the streaming. Plus, it's a way to spy on you also. And the streaming is totally a way to spy on you and to profile you and all that. You can't do that through cable. They can do that through streaming, though. But anyway, I think the economy is getting ready to really do a nosedive of horrible proportions. And you can tell pretty much Trump is acting in desperation for some of the things he's doing. When he brought in Elon Musk, part of that was desperation. On the one hand, Trump wants to build America back into a beautiful, great nation. He wants to be able to pay to redo our infrastructure. He sees the money's not there now. First term, he didn't really fully realize it. This term, he kind of realizes the money ain't there. When the Articles of Confederacy, the first U.S. government crashed, there were debt loads that couldn't be managed. Farmers couldn't pay their bills. You had different countries minting different currencies. Well, right now you got digital, you got crypto, you got these different currencies. Back the Articles of Confederation, every state, they minted their own currency. None of the currencies could easily be traded. Well, crypto can easily be traded. There's no comparison there. But foreign countries would not recognize part of the currencies. Inflation, it got up to over 20%. And then you had Shays' Rebellion, little prissy George Washington, that great general. I know how to straighten things out, boy. Make me king. He had every intention of being king, to be clear. You know, they always say, why didn't George Washington be king? Because he was such a noble man. He was so wonderful. No, because the people are getting ready to lynch the son of a bitch. They weren't going to allow him to become king. He was not that loved. That's fantasy, like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, The Three Bears. George Washington is mostly fantasy. He was a son of a bitch. Now, mind you, he was a great general. He was a great military person. He was a son of a bitch, though. Anyway, so we could actually end up in a country where we go back from this roller coaster ride that we've been on with all this entertainment sources that we kind of loved it. It's kind of like it was neat. It was wonderful, but in the sinking, crashing economy, most households can't afford it anymore. What most households can afford? 3 TV stations over the air. And hopefully the internet. Hopefully they don't make the internet where it's unaffordable for everybody. Okay, much thanks for watching and listening. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.